Hi, I'm Adam Pacifico, and this is episode 200. Who knew that I would be creating 200 episodes of The Leadership Enigma? But this is an incredible episode that we recorded, filmed live in front of an audience in central London with the incredible Viv Anderson, who was a formidable footballer. I grew up watching. He played for Nottingham Forest, Arsenal, Manchester United. He's the winner of the Football League, European Cup, League Cup, FA Cup. In fact, he was part of the World Cup squad for England and indeed made British sporting history by being the first ever black player to play a full England international. And we have an incredible conversation where he talks to us about what it was like to be led by, above all, Sir Alex Ferguson, Brian Clough, and who are the best players he's ever played against, and who are the best players he's ever played with. And what does leadership mean in football? And who are his role models? There was so much that came out of this particular episode. You don't want to miss it. And above all else, this episode was in support of an incredible charity, Leadership Through Sport and Business, which is all about social mobility and helping young adults into the workplace who ordinarily may not have had the opportunities that they can assist with. This is episode 200, and all of us here at Launchpod Studios are incredibly proud. Thank you. Hi, I'm Adam Pacifico, and welcome to The Leadership Enigma, a world-ranked, award-winning podcast that's insatiably curious as regards what leaders do, how they do it, and importantly, why. We'll delve into the human doing, but even deeper into the human being and the power of human-centered leadership to drive sustainable change. So whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, corporate executive, each week we speak to global experts, academics, rising stars, ambitious upstarts and disruptors, as together we will discover that success leaves clues.
Right. Our times have changed. This used to be full of lager. Now it's full of water.
We're going to talk about all of those things for sure. This is a special event. I'm just going to set something up because there's a bit of a challenge as well to this one. So episode 200 is really geared towards trying to support the charity and raise awareness as much as possible. Got a challenge. Viv, as you know, Stuart Pearce has been a guest on the show. So when this goes live in about 5 weeks, we're going to tag you all, and I'm going to ask every single person to share this as much as possible, because we need to get 2 million impressions across all platforms in order to beat the Stuart Pearce episode. Deal? No,
Deal.
There's no pressure on us at all, is there? We'll do that.
I better get some more water.
You think it's water in there, Viv, but
I'll let you know after 5 minutes.
it's incredible that you've put in the effort to come down. I appreciate that. Just first question, how long have you been involved now with LTSB? Because that's what this is all about.
Catherine, Debbie, can you let me know? It's about 4 years, something like that? 4 or 5? 4 or 5 years? Yeah. Those two got me involved. David Pinchin, Mervyn Davis, them sort of people. I just happened to be in their company one night and they said, why don't you get involved? Which I did.
I know you're a huge supporter of young adults coming through the system. You're a huge supporter in the work that you do now, which we'll come back to. But what was it really that attracted you to helping young adults now in a social mobility way? Is that something that's always been true to your heart, or is that something more recently?
In fairness, no, it wasn't really. It's the ladies and David and Mervyn that highlighted the fact of these things. I sat next to somebody who worked for NatWest, and I had a good 4 hours with him, and he explained a lot more about it, and I thought it's a great thing they're doing, and I've been to lots of fundraising for them now, and long may it continue.
Well, it's a huge thank you for everybody for that effort. So let's start from the beginning, because the podcast has always had a real DNA to it, and that's I'm insatiably curious about the human being, not just the human doing. And we're going to come on to what you've achieved and those accolades, and a lot of people want to hear in your words what you've done and how you've done it, what it means. But let's go back early life, because I know this is a big product of your existence as well. Your parents, I think, came over in the 50s, is that right, from Jamaica?
That's right,
part
yeah.
of the Windrush generation.
Yes.
So just help me understand a little bit about that impact on you growing up and their impact as well into who you are and what you've become.
My parents came over. My mother came over in the early 50s. Her sister happened to be in Nottingham. She arrived in Plymouth and getting from Plymouth to Nottingham is an achievement in itself,
Right.
even in modern day, mine back in the 50s. So because her sister was there. So I brought up with lots of nieces and nephews living around the corner and playing football all the time. That was my biggest input.
So where had the football bug come from? Is that just something that was in you to start with? Because I know your son's playing football now as well, professionally. We'll come on to that. But was it always there, or was there an inspiration from somewhere in relation to football?
My dad, God rest his soul, must be turning his grave because he was always cricket fan. That's why I was named Vivian. Viv Richards, obviously. So I don't know where it came from. Just happened to be playing with a ball. It could be any ball. It could be a little tennis ball. It could be a football. It could be anything. I just always kicking a football till all hours with friends and family and whoever's around.
So the clues were there. I want to ask you how you got your break into football, because we spoke earlier that so many young boys and girls actually would love to break into football. I know your son is doing that right now. I know you played at Nottingham Forest. I'm going to get the dates right now, Viv. You know, help me. 74 to 84.
You're reading it. You should
Of
know
course
this
I
off
am.
by heart.
I know. I don't want to make a mistake. We can edit it out later.
Yeah.
Arsenal, 84 to 87.
Yeah.
We'll come on to that. Man United, 87 to 91. And then a combination
You're looking
of
at me as if I... I'm going to say, no, you've got that wrong. No.
You'll correct me.
Yeah.
How did you break into football? What was that moment?
I went to Skegness on holiday.
Right.
With my parents. And I'm playing with the football, as we talked about. And I was a little bit away from them, just messing about on my own. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, would you like a trial? Trial for what? And I said, well, I'm a scout for Sheffield United.
Yep.
We'd like you to come and have a trial. Don't know. So I took him back to my parents and they said the same thing. Said, would your lad like to come for a trial at Sheffield United? So I ended up going to Sheffield for a trial. Must have done reasonably well because a few days later, a Manchester United scout had seen that trial and said, would your son like to come to Manchester United? So, yeah, thank you. It was the best club in the world. Was, I might add.
We're going to be revisiting all of these themes later, right?
Yeah, so, so I went to Manchester United. I'd go up every school holiday. So I was in there for a year, back and forth.
Yep.
Stayed with a lad called Johnny Aston's mum and dad, who was in the first team at the time. Different digs every time you went up.
Right.
But finally they said, I don't think you're going to quite make it, because they're all coming from all over. They're all English internationals, Welsh internationals. Here's me, little skinny lad from Nottingham, coming up every week. But they said, I don't think you're going to quite make it at Manchester United. So I went back to Nottingham. My mum and dad said, you've got to get a job now. You've done your football bit. You get yourself a job.
Right.
So I got a job as a silk screen printer. Does anybody know what that is?
Over the age of...
Yeah. My job was to get the teas at lunchtime and sandwiches and stuff like that. Didn't do much silk screen printing. But Nottingham Forest said, would you play for us on a Wednesday? So I got the day off to play for them on the Wednesday. Said, could you come back the next week after the trial? Said yes, and they signed me then. Then I made my debut when I was 17. So it was it could have gone either way.
Right.
You know, after I come back from Manchester United, I could have got this job as a silk screen printer, and I could still be doing it now.
So how did that feel when Manchester United, at such an early age, which is a common experience for most people, most young boys and girls in an academy system, how did that feel when they said, you're not going to make it?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen here.
Obviously devastated, yeah. So, because, as I said, I was kicking a football when I can remember. Just like Freddie is up there. He was kicking a ball from a very small age. And, it was devastating, really. And then Mum and Dad said, well, you've got to go and get yourself a job. You know, you've had this football lark, and now get yourself a job, which I had to do.
Now, you're Nottingham born and bred, so tell us a little bit about, obviously, what it must have felt like for Nottingham Forest to come and say, come and try with us. I
was always a Manchester United fan. Okay. so remember, I went up for a year, back and forth. And we used to stop training and watch Best, Law and Charlton train on the next pitch. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? Not really. So I've always been a Manchester United fan, as my son is now a Man City fan.
Right. So, and your son is in the audience, just so that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And
so I've always been a Manchester United fan. So for them to say, no, you're not going to make it at this football club, it was quite devastating, really.
Had you always played in a certain position, or were you experimenting when you were younger? So were you ever at times a winger, a striker?
At school, I was a striker.
Yep.
Used to run offside for fun.
Right.
But I was a striker at school. And then when I went to the professional ranks, I played in midfield. I played, even in a league game, I actually played in goal. But that's another story. But fullback or defender, I was always after that. But I scored lots of goals when I was a striker at school.
And then did you know where you were going to be best placed on the football pitch, or did you have to, again, experiment and get guidance in relation to finding that out?
I think once you go into the professional ranks, they see what they think you're going to be later on. I didn't come as a striker as I played at school. I came as a defender.
Yep.
So I used to switch between playing centre half or centre back or right back or right side midfield. So they experimented in all different positions, and in the end, they find the niche one for you, which was fullback for me at the time.
Let's focus on the Nottingham Forest years, because I think side by side with that is obviously the enigmatic Brian Clough.
Yeah.
So we talked very briefly before, and he said, "Yeah, I've got some stories about Brian Clough." So
yeah, we can't say him on this podcast.
Well, we're live for this audience, and then we can edit for the rest of the world.
It'd be a long edit.
But much has been written about Brian Clough, and much has been said about Brian Clough. But what was it like to play for Cloughie?
The analogy I would give, these kids that go on these courses, that underprivileged kids, they had the Davids, the Catherines, the Debbies to look after them. I had Mr. Clough, little black kid from Nottingham, got in the team. He was absolute gen for me, because I'd go to places. Remember, we're talking about early 70s.
Yeah.
There weren't many black faces about. So I'd go to, I distinctly remember going to Carlisle. And I'm subbed this day, and he looks down the line. There was only 3 subs in them days, and he'd say, "Anderson, warm up." So manager says, "Warm up," you warm up. So within 5 minutes, I'm sat back down. And he said, "I thought I told you to warm up." I said, "Boss, they're throwing apples, bananas and pears at me." He said, "Get back out there and get me 3 pears and a banana." True story. So he was really good for me. And then after the game, he pulls me to one side and says, "You let people in this audience dictate to you. You're no good to me. I'll pick somebody else. But you're here because you've got the talent, and I believe you've got the talent to go bigger places, and that's why you're here. So make the most of it while you can. Don't let them dictate to you."
Now, that might be easier said than done, because you're still young in age.
18.
17, playing professional football under the tutelage of Clough.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, racism in the game is still something that is probably something we're all quite embarrassed about as a nation, but it was even worse then. Where do you find the strength and the resilience to take on those words and say, "I can still perform at my best, game after game after game"?
Let's go back one.
Yeah.
I'd watch the telly on a Saturday night, match of the day, like everybody does. And the only blackface you ever saw, now and again, was a lad called Clyde Best. He was a centre forward who played for West Ham. Not even in my position. But every time he's on the telly, I think, I want to be like him. And how do I get to that point? You know, obviously, Mr. Clough saw something in me. And the resilience came from him, really, saying, "You're good enough, you're good enough. Keep on thinking that way." And that's what I did. Because it would be easy to just go, "Well, it's not for me." Another example, I go to it's always in the north, isn't it? I went to Newcastle in a cup tie, and I walk out on the pitch to have a look at the pitch before the game, and on my own, for whatever reason, going back, and I got dog's abuse. And I said to the manager, as I walk in the dressing room, I said, "I don't think I can play tonight."
Yeah.
And he looked me straight in the face and says, "You're playing. End of." So you just got to get on with it. And that's what I did. And then it never registered after that.
I want to talk to you about the fact that you're actually a trailblazer and you created British sporting history. But to do that, I've got a little bit of a surprise for you, actually.
Right, have you?
It's not a bad surprise. So I'm hoping that, do you remember, you're going to remember, and other people might remember.
My first one was black and white, my first one. So that's not original. Definitely not the original.
But do you remember this programme? Do you remember This Is Your Life?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So, listen, there are many people that wish you well, and a number of people who know you're here and you're doing that and you're supporting the charity. So, as I say, it's huge thanks. So, we went out to a couple of people, and
Are you serious?
yeah, of course we did. You know, when we chatted last week, I didn't tell you everything. I told you most things.
I'm going to be hiding underneath there in about 5 minutes.
No, you're not. You're going to be absolutely fine. So, if I put this up, and you can look behind me, you've got a number of badges up there. I don't know whether you know who might pop up on the screen now as a little message for you. So you've got Newcastle, Wolves, Villa, West Ham, and Forest.
I haven't got a clue.
Which is great. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
So let me just roll VT, I think, as they say.
Hi, Viv. I heard you're doing a podcast today. Me and Catherine was talking about it at the weekend when we was doing the Three Peaks. She's an unbelievable woman to do that. It was so hard, bro. It was so hard. We're just talking and she's asking me, like, do you know Viv? I said, what, Viv Anderson? I said, yeah. He's an absolute legend. What a ambassador for the footballing game.
I owe him money,
just
by the way.
Such a true gent, and the things that he does. First black person to play for England. Was just talking about you, and I was just bigging you up, bro. But hope you're well, and see you soon.
That's a pretty cool message, right?
He didn't do it word for word because I scripted it for him.
He did pretty well, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
I put this picture up as well for a number of reasons, because he's highlighted you made British sporting history by being the first black player to play in a full England international. Now, that...
Is that really me? A lot slimmer.
And that's an iconic shirt for so many of us. We've grown up with that.
Yeah.
You were a trailblazer, Viv, but at the time you probably didn't realise it. You said you watched Match of the Day and you saw a black player and you thought, that's an inspiration for me.
Yeah.
And then you went on to be the first black player to play a full England international.
Yeah.
Did you know at the time what you were doing or you were setting in motion?
Absolutely not. No. Even now, I come down on the train today and I get in the cab. The cab went, Viv, I saw your debut. I'm going, you must be 108, mate. But it's amazing how many people do say that to me, especially when they come to London.
Yeah.
So, yeah, clearly it was a big thing at the time. For me, it was basics, football stuff. First tackle, first header, don't give the ball away, don't make a fool of yourself. People are watching, families watching.
Pressure.
More
pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I mean. How do you cope with that? How do you cope with that degree of pressure? Put the racism part is yes, an element, but now put all the pressure of playing football professionally. How?
My parents must be. They were very laid back and let me get on with what I wanted to do, and I took a lot from them, and it was one of those, it's just natural, really.
How did this come about then? Because obviously putting an England shirt must be the pinnacle for anybody, or putting on the national shirt must be really at the top of most people's achievements.
Yeah.
How did this come about?
Oh, I found out through the manager. The manager, Mr. Clough, rings me. Oh, no, I had to go to his office and say, I've got this letter from the FA. And it said, you've been selected, son. I went, oh, thank you very much. It was as simple as that. He said, try and do your best. And something like, words to that effect. So it was very casual way of finding out. And then subsequently later on that day, the press get to find out, it's on the television and everything.
Let me talk about the fact that you've set something in motion and where we are today.
Let me say something else.
Yeah.
How I became the first is because there was a lad called Laurie Cunningham, who's sadly not with us. There was talk about him and me. He's the first black under-21 international.
Yep.
And we were in a room together. We're playing Bulgaria, I think, playing in Sofia. We're in a room together, and you're thinking, oh, is it going to be you? Is it going to be you? That's good. The conversation in the room through the 3 days we're together. Now it was, well, what car? I've got this Mercedes. Do you think you'll get this Mercedes? You should get these brochures out looking at cars. So it was nothing like that between us. It was like, if it's you, it's you. If it's me, it's me. And just fortunate it happens to be me.
Was Brian Clough very good at keeping your feet on the ground, regardless of what was going on? Because I've heard this before with other players, but he always kept you very, very grounded.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. You go back, it's like well, that's it now. You've played for England. Now it's about Nottingham Forest now. Concentrate on winning on Saturday or Wednesday or next time you play.
Was he a supporter of the national team, or was he? It was a bit of a distraction. What was his view?
I think he went for the national team boss. So he went for the interview. He was never ever going to get it because he was never going to get it because the hierarchy would never have him. He could go off at a tangent and they couldn't afford to have that. But he went for the interview, so he did love England and he wanted to be the England manager. Would he be able to have done a good job? Absolutely, 100% he would have done.
So what do you think was really preventing that? Because obviously he was a winner.
Yeah.
And, you've won many things, the European League, the Football League, European Cup, the League Cup, the FA Cup. So with him, you were winning.
Yep.
He was winning.
Yep.
But that wasn't going to be enough, do you think, for him to get the job? A serial winner.
He's a serial winner. You look at the records. I mean, not many players can say they won back-to-back European Cups. You look at Man City, they've tried to do it and they can't do it, and they've got a nation behind them. So that's how difficult it is, And then in them days, the European Cup was 8 games, 1 game, 1 off. You get beat on the night, you're out of the competition. Now it's a league format and 20-odd games, so it's a lot more difficult to win when we won it.
There's a reason that I picked this photo as well, because I actually saw a video, it's probably a while ago now, of you showing this photo to your children. And
did I, Freddie?
You showed
told me.
And I remember you saying to your 3 kids,
yeah,
look, I'm the only black player in this squad. And you were talking about how you had inspiration to play, how you were an inspiration now for youngsters to play, not just black, but also white, and to try and create that diversity in the game. Where are we now, 2024, considering where we were, where we now? What's been the progress, Viv?
You put that picture up now, the squad that's going to go to the European Championships, you'll see a lot more black faces. So we've progressed in that respect, players-wise, as you say, but you look at the management side, you look at administration side, there's still a lot to do.
So with statistics, I think I saw that 44% now of the Premier League are black players.
Yeah.
But when we think about management, ownership or boards,
yeah,
single digits.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
What's that about?
You tell me. They talked about bringing in the Rooney rule where black faces have got to be interviewed. But there's no point if the owner is always going to give it the white guy or somebody else. It's got to be right. They've got a chance of getting the job. As long as they've got the credentials, they should be given an opportunity. And you say, could you name me 5 English black managers?
No.
Yeah, you can't. You just got rid of one. Varsini has just gone from Hull, so we've got 1 less.
And it's something that's come up in conversation when I've spoken to other players as well. I remember chatting also to Les Ferdinand, who talked about, again, passion for this particular subject.
Yeah.
What can be done, though? Are you working with the regulators or the FA? Are they tapping into players who have played, tapping into players who are playing and trying to really understand how they can help the game?
Not really.
Right.
Really. I think they could do a lot more. I've said that before. I think there's lots of people like Paul Ince, Andy Cole, Dwight York, who've been at the top level and they're doing nothing. Surely we should be able to utilise these players, even going to schools, talking about their careers. There's lots of ways they can educate people and the next generation to think, yeah, I want to be a footballer. I want to be a footballer. I want to do this, that, the other. I think they can do a lot more. I don't think they do anywhere near enough.
So is there a way of leveraging what you did then into today's game? Because at the time you said you didn't quite realise what you were trailblazing when you first did what you did.
Right.
But now, if there was one key message that you would want to offer anyone listening or watching in relation to tackling this particular issue, is there something that's a standout?
Tackling racism?
Yeah, racism in the game today.
For the modern player?
Yeah.
It's just to play. Play as much as you can. I mean, with all the adversity going in at the moment, you just sort of keep on playing. Because you playing and doing well, scoring goals and everything else, like Saka's doing. He's doing a great job at Arsenal, which is your team. I think just to keep playing and keep pushing the message. And hopefully one of these will get out. I've seen where Andy Cole wants to get in, or no, it was the other Cole, the left back. He wants to get into management. Jermaine Defoe wants to get into management. You need somebody of these ilk to get in and do a decent job, not to be sacked after 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. Give them a good amount of time to bed them in and show that they can bridge the gap. Can bridge the gaps with the players. Now can we bridge the gap as managers and coaches and administrators?
And I think you've passionately said before, haven't you? It's all about the credentials.
It is.
If someone's got the credentials,
just don't give it in because they're black
no.
or they're Asian or they've got to have the credentials to do that in the first place.
Okay, let me change gears slightly because obviously we need to talk about Manchester United.
We do.
We do. Who had a better game last night? But obviously you were playing for another iconic manager, and that's Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yep.
And you were the first signing for Sir Alex, I believe. Is that right?
Alphabetically.
Tell me more.
Myself and a man called Brian Clough.
Yep.
He came from Celtic, scored millions of goals in Scotland. We came at the same time. We signed at the same time, but I win alphabetically.
I'll take that. Tell us a little about what it was like playing for Sir Alex. Again, serial winner, decades worth of management experience.
Remember when he first came to Manchester United?
Didn't work out, did it?
It wasn't as simple as that.
People have got short memories on this. So tell us a little bit about that and what you remember of that time.
I remember they're very, very similar.
Yep.
They want to play football in the right way. You play and move. You don't dwell on the ball. It's very fluent. But I remember his first pre-season, and we'd heard about the hairdryer, but nobody had from the lads at Aberdeen. But Gordon Strachan, who was there, he said, "Well, if you get the hairdryer, you know you've." So we play Hartlepool's away in a pre-season game.
Right.
The team is a lad called Chris Turner, me at right back, Paul McGrath, Kevin Moran, Arthur Albiston, Gordon Strachan, Norman Whiteside, Brian Robson, Jesper Olsen. Up front was Brian McClare and Mark Hughes.
Good memory. That's the entire team. There you go, right?
You know what?
I know. But
you know what? You don't know what's coming.
Oh, okay.
We're 5-0 down at half time.
Right.
Well, the cups went, hot tea everywhere, people's faces, and he goes round to everybody individually. Call yourself a Manchester United, and his veins are sticking out his neck.
Right.
Call yourself a Manchester United player and steam in your face, and you've got to accept it because you're 5-0 down at half time. So he gets to Paul McGrath, and Paul McGrath goes, puts his hand up like that. No need to shout. I'm only here. And we're going like, oh no, Paul, no. But he subsequently sold him about 3 weeks later after that.
That's called feedback, isn't it?
Yeah. So it was a bit of a mixed match when he first got there. Some players the coaching staff fancied that didn't turn out to be the players they thought they were going to be. So he had to redress that by signing different people. So it was interesting, to say the least.
That's very British to say interesting, isn't it, with that? Look, we talk about leadership a lot on the podcast. Could you see or hear what Sir Alex was doing? Because it wasn't easy. A lot of people have forgotten that he was not the serial winner.
That's right.
An iconic manager then. So did you see or hear any clues as to how he was getting through that to become the manager that we now know and the serial winner that we know?
When I signed,
yeah.
You could see his passion and how he wanted to win, and he wanted this team to be, and wanted this club to be successful.
Yeah.
But I remember going to Nottingham Forest, my old club, in the FA Cup tie, and the rumours in the paper that if we got beat that game, he was going to get the sack and all the rest of it. It wasn't mentioned in the dressing room, but the players talked between ourselves, thinking, would he be there? And Mark Robbins scored. We won 1-0, and that season they went on to win the FA Cup. And then the Beckhams and the Scholes and the Butts and the Nevilles, they all came into the frame then, and then they went on from there.
So I know we've talked very briefly about Clough and Ferguson as iconic managers, but what makes a successful manager in today's game with the players of today?
Today's game, according to them two managers, when they say, "I'll take the training today," we all go, "No." They're not good managers. They're good managers, but not good coaches.
Right.
But they know what to do from 3 o'clock to whenever the game finishes. Who to take off, who to bring, who to... I'd sit there, watch it. I was a sub this day, and I remember him shouting at a player constantly. This is Cloughy now.
Yep.
Constantly for 45 minutes. So I'm thinking, we're going to go in that dressing room, and he's going to absolutely slate this player. Get in the dressing room, he goes around everybody, and he goes to this player, he goes, "You keep going, son, you've done well for me today." And I'm going, my God, you just slaughtered him for 45 minutes. And then so that he knew what he needed and what he didn't know. And that's what they're both good at. You know, who needs a bollockins, where's my words, or who needs a pat on the back and a G up to go out in the second half. And they knew spot on what to do for an individual. They may not be good coaches, but they know what to give the player at the right time.
Are you spotting any of those characteristics or traits in some of the modern managers? So let's think about, we've got Man City and Arsenal vying for top spot. That will be sorted out on Sunday. Are you seeing any traits or characteristics of what was successful then in them?
I think I see a lot in Pep. I see a lot in Postecoglou, in fairness.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw his interview, how passionate he is. Pep, definitely. He's a player's man. You can see when he's played at top level as well, So, I can see traits in them, yeah.
Were there managers, because we've all heard as well that there are non-negotiables, that managers are very clear on what they will not accept.
Yep.
And if you're managing and leading a dressing room of superstars, of very highly paid superstars, who are themselves iconic brands, does a manager really have to have very tight non-negotiables so a player really understands when they're out of play, so to speak, in their behaviour and where they can operate freely?
Well, you look at Sir Alex.
Yeah. When
Beckham crossed that line, you're gone. You're gone. I'm thinking Cloughy. Cloughy did it with a couple of players. He did it with a lad called Vance Tyson, who came from Ipswich with a big reputation.
Yeah.
Asa Hartford. Asa Hartford was literally trained twice with us. And then we came down from an away game, and he said, "Oh, I'm going, lads." I said, "What? You just signed?" He said, "No, they want me out. They sold me." So they see things in people, and once they cross that line or whatever reason, they've gone. The manager makes a decision and you're gone.
So was there always team over individual?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, 100%.
Do you think that's still the same in the modern game?
Well, you look at Pep. Look, he got rid of
Zlatan, didn't he?
he's got rid of everybody, hasn't he? So they make decisions like your club. He's made the decision about the goalkeeper. Yeah. Ramsey, this is what I want, and this is how it's going to work. You stay there or leave. It's one of those. I think you have to.
It's pretty tough.
If you're gonna go down, you might as well go down with your team and your players, opposed to somebody picking from a bit like the Forest thing. They're getting people from all over the place, and the manager doesn't have a clue. This one's coming in. What position does he play? So you've got to have some say in the matter.
I want to ask you some questions around leadership, because that is a passionate subject for me. It's what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm always intrigued as to maybe some of the leadership lessons that you've taken away. But I've got another surprise for you.
Another surprise?
I've got another one.
The pens come out again.
So we're going back to the classic, This Is Your Life.
Right.
I'm going to put up some logos
and
see if you can guess this one. You ready? Okay. So now we've got, amongst others, Newcastle, City, West Ham, Forest, and England. What do you reckon?
Newcastle, Kevin Keegan? It's a guess.
And it's wrong. So this is what we're going to do. Next guest.
Hi Viv, Stuart Pearce here. Just wanted to send you a message, mate, just to say how proud I was when I joined Forest in '85 that players like yourself and the Forerunners were so, victorious really. European Cup winners, league winners, you were instrumental in that, brilliant. And obviously a few years later I got in the England squad, and you were one of the older heads that I looked up to when I got in the squad. Okay mate, hope you're well, take care.
Thanks, Pierce, yeah. Nice fella.
So I'm seeing
And
Pierce,
I never played with him.
Do you know what? I'm seeing Pierce in a couple of weeks, so you and I are going to do a video in response, and I'm going to show him that, but we'll sort that out afterwards. He talked about you being an old head, and when I chatted to Stuart, he had actually really started to think about some of the lessons that he had learned and what it meant to him, and how he could share some of those to people who were not in football, but they were leading themselves, leading teams and leading organisations. Right. So let me ask you this. firstly, who do you think was the best leader that you've come across in your
As a
time?
manager?
Well, I don't know. It might not be.
No, Clough by far the best
Okay.
leader. Best
and,
leader.
And again, what's the standout for him? Is just no nonsense.
Listen, if you speak to old Manchester United players, old Forest players, they would say the same thing. If the manager said, go through that window, you would. You wouldn't even hesitate. And that's the degree he gets from the players. They do anything for him.
I remember Piercy came in and told me a story. He actually said that when he got the call up to England, he went to Clough and said, look, I've got the call up for England. And Clough apparently said to him, do you think you're good enough to play for England? I don't. Get out. And that was his pep talk.
Which I'm not surprised.
There we go. Thinking about, is there an occurrence or experience in your career that you think is a big lesson for you in relation to leading yourself, whether that's from a resilience point of view or just how you show up? Because you're a massive role model. You are on the pitch and off the pitch.
I think that comes into play when you're older. I had the likes of Kenny Burns, Larry Lloyd, who sadly just died. They all took all the leadership things, but when they left, the older players, then you've got to take the mantle over and be the leader with other people. I used to do that with the younger lads, and I used to bring them out of their shell, try and get them to the level that needs to be at Nottingham Forest or Manchester United or wherever it may be.
Okay. When we were chatting, I think it was last week, I want to ask you a question about a moment that mattered. And that might be with a manager, it might be with a player, it might even be with a family member, I don't know. Is there a moment that mattered where something happened and you thought, that's a big deal for me?
Freddie, can you help me out here? When you were born?
No, we
should have said that.
No, we should say, as you're talking to Freddie, Freddie, wave, he's just up there at the top. Freddie is your son. He's now playing...
For Stoke.
For Stoke.
Yeah.
He was at City.
Yes.
And he's now thinking about also playing internationally as well, which is incredible. And he's got some choices, which is great. So we wish you luck with that.
One thing that stands out, I'm trying to think.
What role have you played in your son's passion for football, do you think?
The chauffeur.
I know how that feels. The son who was in the academy before you, hundreds and hundreds of miles, right?
Absolutely.
Which is crazy.
Taking him all over the place.
Well, maybe we'll come back to that. So there's a lot of talk about leadership and a lot of mention of the term leaders. Mm-hmm. And you've only got to watch any match and all the pundits and all the fans. Everyone throws out the term leader. We need more leaders. We need a leader on the pitch. And there's no one. What on earth is everybody talking about when we talk about leadership in football? What are we talking about?
See, leadership, I mean, I played with one of the best. There's a lad called Brian Robson.
Yep.
I mean, he's the one that won most headers, won most tackles, scored most goals. He was a central, that's what a central midfield player did in them days. Stephen Gerrard was a fantastic footballer, but he never spoke, but he did it with his actions more so than talking.
Yeah.
Brian Robson did it with his actions and talking, getting everybody together, galvanising people. That's what he did. If we'd have a bad day at Manchester United or a bad result, he'd say, everybody leave your keys at home on Monday. We're going out for a team meeting. That means we're going out for a bit of lunch and we're going to try and sort the problem out. Between us, leave the manager out of this. It's the players who are going to sort that because he can't play. It's the players who've got to solve it out. So we'd have a bit of lunch, a few drinks, and we'd sit down. I always remember a lad called Gary Pallister. We got beat at home to Norwich, and he was at fault for one of the goals. So after we'd had a few drinks, we said, we'll get Pally over now. So there's Brian Robson, Gary Pallister, and me. And we say, Pally, you were shit on Saturday. He says, yeah, I wasn't too good. He says, it's not good enough. You're Manchester United now. We think you're rubbish. He says, I don't agree with that. So we're not bothered if you agree. This is the facts. So he took that on board. He wasn't happy at the time. He'd had a few drinks, and we'd all had a few drinks, but we were just speaking our mind, and took it away and became a really good player and played for England for many, many times.
I think we might know that to be
sometimes it's other people.
Candor.
It's not the manager. It's the senior players at the football club that gets the younger players on track, like Roy. Roy would be doing the same.
So when actually Stuart Pearce talked about you being more of the old guard and actually the wise head,
Yeah.
that's important for any changing room or for any team, isn't it? To have those who can help craft the younger lot coming through.
Very much so, yes. Because the manager invariably goes for the younger lads because they're making mistakes. They're young, getting in the team, making mistakes. The older ones are the ones who are reliable. He knows what he's going to get out of them. Yeah. So that's the way it works. That's the way football is.
I'm going to get the audience to ask you some questions as well, because I think it'd be lovely if they have a chance to maybe ask you the questions that I haven't asked. They'll do a better job.
Just be gentle with me.
Be
that's
gentle.
All I say.
I just want to ask you, look, you got your MBE for services to football in 2000 from Her Late Majesty. What was that like?
Fantastic, yeah. I'm a big royalist, and it's a big to do. You've got to go up and you've got to curtsy, and because the Queen gave me mine. But I always remember we did the practice beforehand, so you don't get it wrong before you go up to the Majesty. And then as you're walking up, the prompter behind her goes, football, Manchester United.
Is that what?
So she hasn't got a clue. So there was 100 odd people there that day, so she wouldn't know who they all are. So somebody prompts her just before she gets up there. But she managed to make conversation. I can't remember what she said, but she did make conversation regarding football.
Listen, tell us a little bit about what you're up to now. It's life after football, and I know you've got lots of passions and you're busy. Certainly, probably shuttling your kids around as well, right?
Between chauffeuring, I have a company called Play On Pro, which it looks after old players, retired players, not just footballers. We've got golfers, cricketers, men and women. So we call them ambassadors. We have over 500 of them, and we try and keep them relevant. You know, once the phone doesn't ring, what do they do? You know, the percentages are 40% will be bankrupt within a year.
Wow.
5% go to prison. Somebody says, take that envelope down to Bristol. Next thing you know, some policeman's knocking on the door. So the rate is really, really high, and we're just trying to keep them, as I said, relevant.
How did you cope with retirement from the game? When you come out of the limelight and all the adulation that goes with it and the success, how do you flick that switch and stop?
It's very difficult. That's why they find it difficult. I was fortunate. I had friends who had a corporate hospitality company. Yep. I invariably went into that straight away after that. So I was lucky I had somewhere to go. You know, business sitting at home waiting the phone. Your agent's onto the next shiny star. He's been your agent for 20 years, and he doesn't ring you back because he's onto the next Bellamy, somebody like that. And you're sitting there waiting. What am I going to do? Because no formal education. You know. What do players do? And I think it's a big thing. In America, the suicide rate is through the roof because once the adulation goes, what do? Drink, drugs, next thing they're dead.
It's all wrapped up in their identity, isn't it? It's who they are.
Exactly.
Which is why I was keen always to explore the human being as well as just the human doing, and how do we unlock those two? Final question, almost. We are supporting the amazing charity LTSB, which you're a patron. What would be your final bit of advice to all the young adults, I hope, watching and listening to this?
I think it's a fantastic scheme. I've spoke to a young lad here tonight who's in the scheme and is in final legs of qualifying for NatWest. And I think if you can get into the scheme, it's a fantastic scheme. It's a great opportunity. But as you say, you've got to be bright. You've got to see the project out, and that's really important because a lot of time, a lot of effort's gone into getting you there in the first place.
I'm going to finish with a very quick either or. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and I did this with Piercy, so they're different, but hopefully we'll get a little bit of an insight now into Viv Anderson. Okay, you ready?
Wait a minute. I'm having with vodka. Is that all right?
Water or vodka? That wasn't one of them. Right. Okay. PC or Mac?
Neither. I'm hopeless, aren't I, Freddie?
Do you know what?
Hopeless.
That's exactly the same answer Stuart Pearce gave me as well.
Did
so
it?
What do you want? He says, neither. Carol does all of that.
Right.
So it's great. Book or movie?
Audio books I'm into at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Barbra Streisand on the way down. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
Catherine?
Right. I think some of these are unfair, but I had to ask. So playing for Forest or playing for United?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
And we're recording
Pass.
This.
Forest, got to be Forest. With two
Forest?
European Cups.
I know. Got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Forest.
But I was a boyhood Man United fan, you know, so best Lord Jolton, remember I said that. Anyway, yeah, Forest, I'll go Forest.
Okay, talk sport or match of the day?
Match of the day.
Oh, okay. How about winning the European Cup or the FA Cup?
European Cup.
Clough or Fergie? I think you've answered that already. But
Pass. No, I would say Cloughie. Only because we had 19,000 average gate. We used to get the cows off the training field to train. That's how bad it was. Man United had all the facilities, all the best players, and Forest.
okay. Wembley Stadium or Old Trafford?
Wembley Stadium.
The old one.
Yeah.
Twin Towers.
Yeah, when you come out the back, not the middle.
Why did they get rid of the Twin Towers?
I know.
Oh, anyway, I'm showing my age now.
Yeah.
Here's a weird one. So time travel, 20 years back or 20 years forward?
Never go back, forward.
Love that. Coaching or punditry?
Neither. Coaching.
Would you ever do the punditry?
I've done bits of it, yeah.
All right, final one. Football in the 80s or football today?
I'd like to earn 500 grand a week. but I would never swap when I played. I wouldn't change it.
Ladies and gentlemen, massive round of applause, please, for Viv taking the time.
Thank you.